Hey guys, Analog Man here, once again bringing you a exciting new deck profile that surprisingly I found by accident floating around on Digimon Meta. Originally, this was made by a Japanese player a few months ago during the BT6 format that they had there. I ended up using that list as a template to create my own version. And so far in my testing, this deck is really it's the best idea to sum it up would be that it's incredibly fun as hell to play um, against muskets. I basically only got to test it against muskets, and in a semi pseudo mirror match it was actually very powerful because most musket decks rely on Beelstar to start popping the board. This deck has does not have that issue whatsoever, since you have both Gundramon and a very rarely used musket card known as Magna Kidmon, who honestly I feel like he's an underdog because a lot of decks I've noticed do not use him whatsoever. They mainly focus on Gundramon and Beelstarmon, and most decks I've seen usually call it the two Musketeers because you're only running two. But it's just weird. Anyway, let's get into the deck profile so I can show you how cool this deck is. First off, since we're running a black base of a deck, we run 4 Pagumon because Pagumon, of course, his effect on deletion, you get to basically look at the next card, and if it's a black Digimon, you get to add it to your hand. Sometimes this does whiff, of course, because you do run purple cards, of course. You run mainly Beelstar, and the red cards and stuff might contradict this, but the majority of the deck is a black base, so this honestly goes off just as much as Demimera, so it's very solid, very awesome card. Originally, I was running another egg, but here I'm keeping it at 4 so I can consistently only see this, so I don't end up going into the other egg that I was running, which was Kapurimon. He's good, but you want this effect more often than his, especially since you're not guaranteed reboot with the amount of rookies that we run in this deck. So yeah, these are all the eggs we run. We run exactly 4. For rookies, we actually run a very, very small lineup. We run 2 Toy Agumons for rebooting. The rebooting is not super important, but you just want to have it maybe for Gundramon later on or possibly Magna Kidmon. In one of my other tests with a friend online, I actually will be putting up that video soon. It was a test against a Green Gacha Megazoo. The deck is very slow, of course, so this deck could essentially outspeed it, honestly, because in my testing, I've seen that this deck is actually just as fast as Muskets, if not faster, because of the less reliance on Beelstar. But yeah, having the 2 Toy Agumons is very solid. It gives you reboot, and it allows you to, I don't know, just have like another rookie, to help boost the lineup. The last rookie we run is actually 4 Chikurimon. We usually run this card specifically just for the de-digivolving, but here we have it as our secondary rookie, and usually, for some reason, this deck is very consistent in seeing these two. In almost every single match I've played with this deck so far, I have not once not seen a rookie. I don't know if it's just how the build works or just how it's streamlined. Like the ratios, honestly, it's like in most decks that run 12, there are moments where you just never see a rookie, but here you consistently will see him either on your turn 2 or your turn 1, or you just draw into it very easily. Surprisingly, it's very weird how this works, but honestly, I like how this works, so I'm keeping it specifically at this ratio for now. In my other variations that I plan to make of this deck. Anyway, let's go to level 4s. We run 4 Deputy Mons, of course, being a black Musketeer deck. This card is very crucial. It helps you basically, mill the deck, get your Beelstars, everything you want basically, and help you Warp Digivolve as well. And the fact, as I said, this being a black Digimon helps this deck synergize much easier than most colors. I'm actually, as of recording, I'm actually working on a red Musket deck, and in testing, it's not really like the synergy isn't there yet. Maybe it requires a little bit more tweaking, but with how I've been testing it, black seems to be the most consistent color to mix with muskets, aside from red. So yeah. Anyway, let's move on. For the other level 4 we run, it is 3 Nanimons. Nanimon is kind of weird. In most instances, I ended up actually evolving this on top of one of the rookies, but there are moments where this does come up as insecurity, where you do essentially get a 3 level 4, and the best part about this is because of its cost. It's only a 3 cost, so it costs as much as these guys, and then it allows you next turn to evolve into a level 5, which is crucial in this deck because since you run so many level 6s, you want to evolve into your level 5s or hard play your level 5s to just evolve as fast as possible to start using your option cards. The only other level 4 we run is actually Shademon as a essentially also as another security Digimon, which will allow you to basically protect your security a little bit better. And of course, it being a 2 cost blocker, you can evolve it on top of the rookies to help draw into your muskets and or option cards. But yeah, that's basically all the level 4s we run. It's kind of weird how this deck works, but it's very solid so far. With consistency wise, this deck is really solid so far. So I'm enjoying it very much. So let's just move into level 5s. We have 3 Megadramons because this Digimon is really awesome. I love BT6 mainly because it allows black and red to synergize so much better, especially for muskets. I've seen a lot of people using this with Black Royal Knights because it's a red and it allows you to essentially make a Jessamon in a black deck. So it's very cool. But this one, it counts as a black Digimon and it can evolve on both a red and a black Digimon, which is why he's actually one of my, as I said, one of my favorites from BT6, and he is not complete without his brother, Gigadramon, who is a black level 5, but he can evolve on any level 4 red, and he counts as a red too. So both of these count as the opposite color, which helps a lot with how with evolution. You most builds will run. I've seen people running more of these, but I actually kind of like it at 6 here. Originally, my idea was to just use the previous template, but here I like how 6 and 6 you see them, but you don't always see them in brick, which is really nice. So 6 of these is very solid. So that's all the level 5s we run. We don't really run that much because essentially we need to make room for the options and the backup options and tamers that you will see in a second once I get to them. So let's go into our level 6s. In this build, we run, of course, 4 Beelstars. I was thinking of lowering this down to 3, but I like it at 4 because this deck does not have a way to recur her as easily as purple muskets or essentially the basic musket purple deck. That deck can recover her, like especially my build that I showed off before. I can recover her about 6 times, but here I only have a total of 2 times I can recover her. So having her at 4 helps mitigate that, but it also makes you have to consider your options a little bit more precise rather than just going off with her as much as possible. Here, as I said in previously earlier in the video, this deck doesn't rely on her as much, but you want to at least see her in your hand as like a backup, like finisher essentially. But yeah, we run 4 of her. We run the standard 3 Gundramons because evolving on top of Deputymon allows you to mill and potentially play a 7 cost option that can pop something on the field and set up your graveyard to make Beelstar. So always keep it as 3. I've seen some builds reduce this down to like a 2, but I honestly like it at 3 because then you see it more often. So yeah, keep this at 3, crucial card. And then the spice of the deck that no musket deck seems to be running is 3 Magna Kidmons. Magna Kidmon is kind of weird. I didn't really learn how to really use him until I built this deck. So the cool thing for those that don't know what this card does, it has security +1 by default, which is already really good by itself. But the best part is that when you digivolve on top of a Deputymon or on top of one of the level 5s, you will essentially get to use one option card from your hand So you're not forced to essentially mill with Gundramon to get one. Here you're just guaranteed to be able to use the ones in your hand, which in this deck you will always be guaranteed this. And he also has the same effect as Gundramon, where if he doesn't play an option, he just gets to pop a rookie on the field. But the best part with him is that since he's red, he can synergize with either of these guys and evolve. And the best part is to either my usual best thing to do is to evolve on top of Megadramon, because then I give him a 13 boost when he's swinging. Or if I know I'm passing it onto my opponent's turn, I evolve it on top of this to give it a boost so that it doesn't die. So very solid card. I'm really loving this card. It's honestly the reason why I wanted to make this deck profile, because I just wanted to find honestly a way to use him alongside the others, and so far it's worked out very well. For the level 7s, we run only 2 Zwart defeats. Most builds will run Millenniumons, Zwarts, and whatever manner of level 7s that they can think of. But with this build, I try to be a little bit minimalistic, essentially, to streamline the deck so that it would run faster, and surprisingly, it has. With just these two, I don't brick with Zort defeats. Most decks will run 3 of these. 2, I honestly feel, is the perfect number because you don't see it as often, but you do see it in crucial moments. I've had crucial moments where that the opponent has played a tamer, and this has clutched it and popped their tamer, so that way they couldn't do anything next turn with their memory, which is amazing. This guy MVP for level 7s here, especially with the whole popping and the fact that he deletes anything if he dies, so it kind of forces your opponent to kind of rethink their strategy when he's on board. So really nice. The only downside is that he does not evolve on top of Magnet Kid, which really sucks, but that's essentially what I have to do. Most of the time, I just evolve it on Gundramon or on top of Beelstarmon, and it seems to work pretty well. So yeah, that's all the Digimon that we run in this deck. The rest of the deck is just options and 4 tamers. So let's get into that actually. So first, of course, this being a Musketeer deck, we're gonna run a lot of 7-cost options. So we run 3 Happy Bullet Showers to essentially kind of board wipe their big guys, because especially level 7s. This doesn't really come up as often with dealing with rookies, but this comes up often to deal with any level 7 Digimon that they have on board. Especially if they only have that one level 7 on board, this can get rid of it, which is really nice. Then we have 3 Fly Bullets, of course, to take out any level 6 or lowers. Very awesome card, and you can play it off of Magnikid, Beelstar, or Gundramon. Very sweet. Then I did reduce down the number of Gewalt Swarmers, because most of your deck consists, well, half your deck essentially consists of stuff that can get popped by this, so you don't want to use this as often, but you want to see it at least for contingency purposes. And then this is where we deviate from how Musket usually works with 7-cost options. I run 2 Ultimate Flares to de-Digivolve stuff, especially this deck has removal, but not enough removal to get rid of Craniumon. So you want this to get rid of Craniumon, because that's one of your main threats to this deck. So that, and then of course to take out, of course, also level 7s, you have Iron Fist Onslaught to take out the highest cost, which of course usually will guarantee their level 7 is going to go down. And then for Tamers, we run 2 Mimi Tachikawas, the cheaper purple one, and then we have 2 Mats to recover Beelstar and possibly Fly Bullets. Mimi, honestly, I wasn't really sure about teching her in originally, but damn, she is crazy powerful. Even if you just have one on the board, this card makes everything Beelstar does reduced by 1. So the best scenario that you can have is having 5 7-cost options, and then you play it for essentially 7, and then this reduces it down to a 6. So essentially, if you have enough memory, you will pass it to your opponent for 3 or 4 memory, which is awesome. Because with how Musket, or just the Muskets decks in general, they tend to give the opponent a lot of memory sometimes, but this helps mitigate it, and it works on both turns. So if your opponent were to activate anything on their turn when this is untapped, you can tap it and then essentially possibly put it to your turn. So if they're greedy enough to try and plus with, like in a mirror match, if they try to be greedy and plus off a Beelstar and they're at 0, you can activate this and put this to your turn, which is really awesome. Honestly, as I said, I was very iffy. This card is awesome. Matte is of course really cool because it lets you recover Beelstar and it sets your memory. And I like having a memory setter, so I opted to just play 2 and 2, so that way it's like kind of balanced ratio wise. But yeah, no, this deck is really cool. Honestly, like I wasn't really sure of it because before I had actually tried out a Black Royal Knights build of this. Essentially, it was very good, but the Black Royal Knights seemed to clog the deck, and because of it being mixed with the Musketeers, it kind of made the deck semi inconsistent a lot. But here, the fact that it just focuses on just the muskets and that's it, and it doesn't try to do anything more, is where the power comes from. It's honestly, from what I've seen, this deck is actually faster than normal muskets by it, not by a huge margin, mind you. I'm not saying it's like an OTK deck. It is not an OTK. It is not an OTK deck. This is still a mid-range control deck, similar to Black and or it's honestly I feel like it's in the middle between mid-tier decks that counter control and then the control decks. So it's right in the middle. It's a balance of both, but with certain benefits. This, of course, is faster than any mid-range deck, but at the same time, it can control just as good as a control deck like Black Royal Knights or Security Control. So it has the best of both worlds in this case, but at the same time, something wholly unique by itself, which honestly, I feel like people should be trying more weird things like this. Muskets, honestly, I've seen from the recent tops, I've seen that's mostly just a basic purple deck, and I understand that the idea is to plus as hard as possible, but at the same time, this kind of deck can work too, especially considering the fact that most other decks aside from Musket have a hard time dealing with this, especially with how you have all the other versions. Magna Kidmon actually does help this deck function a little bit better because, as I said with purple, the over reliance on Beelstar, I feel it's not bad, but the problem is that when you rely too much on it and you don't mill enough, your deck basically dies because you're focusing on just poking and then milling. But this deck doesn't focus on the milling. It focuses on just board control, and I feel like that is more of a benefit than just going all out with the removal. Here, of course, I mean, I have a lot of removal, but at the same time, I have the Mimis to mitigate memory. I have this to recover this. I have this to take out Tamers. I have this to de-digivolve. I have blockers, and I can level up. And essentially, I'm doing all the things that most normal decks do, plus the control and the mid-tier, like, milling. So I feel that people should try out this deck because it's very, as I said, it's very fun, but at the same time, it's very consistent. And I honestly, when I play card games, I value consistency. And so far, this deck has been very consistent. So I highly recommend that you guys check this deck out. I'm not saying that you have to copy my deck, but just take it as a template and make your own version. And maybe you might find some weird tech that I didn't see, but this deck already is very solid. And if you want a consistent black deck that isn't Black Royal Knights, or possibly Diaboro decks that are still floating around, or maybe even black blocker decks, this deck has everything that black can do, but just slightly faster and more consistent. So anyway, thank you for watching. Let me know in the comments what you thought about this deck. Honestly, any improvements, I'm welcome to listening to because as I said in many of my videos, I love improving my decks and making them as good as possible, and I do want this deck to succeed. So any feedback is appreciated. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time for another deck profile or possibly a video or a my rounds in the recent card magic. I'm still working on that, guys. I'll upload those eventually, but it's a slow process for me. So anyway, see you next time.